I've been asked about 1,000 times, how do we like snow on the Gulf Coast? The answer to that question is you can keep your snow. We enjoyed it for about 8 hours, but closing school on the Gulf Coast is tough, and I guarantee you we don't understand what ice on roads really does, and we also don't understand how long that ice lasts under roads, especially under beautiful oak trees. So to answer that question, we had fun for about 8 hours, and the other 4 days were miserable. So welcome to this evening. Let me remind everyone to silence their cell phones. Also be reminded that the board meeting is live streamed. We are here today at the Mississippi Board of Education meeting, February 20th, 2025. It is 10 o'clock a.m. We are in the 4th floor boardroom here at the Central High School building, which is the home of the Mississippi Department of Education, located at 359 North West Street, Jackson, Mississippi. So as I call the meeting to order, I would like to ask our virtual attendees today to identify themselves and their location. Ms. Barrett?
I am in South Carolina, Mississippi, and this is Mary Warner.
Very good, Mary. Wendy?
Biloxi, Mississippi.
Very well. Bill?
I'm in Amelia Island, Florida.
Very good. Ronnie? He's not here today, right? That's okay. All right. So at this point, I'd like to ask Ms. Stroud to lead us in our pledge and Mr. Pruitt to lead us in our invocation.
Salute pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow. Lord, we come today to this room to do the business that we hope pleases you. We ask you to be with each of us. We ask you to forgive us for our sins and to strengthen us and to strengthen the community of people in this state that educate our children. We pray for our students. We pray for the employees in this building, and we ask these things in your Son's name. Amen.
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 You have before us today the approval of the minutes from our January 16th meeting. May I have a motion to approve? Ms. Stroud?
So moved.
Ms. Warner, the second. Any questions or comments?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that carries. You also have the agenda for today's meeting in front of us. May I have a motion to approve? Mr. Mayu? Mayo, Ms. Stroud? Any questions or comments? None. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
So that carries. For those that are new to our building here today, we do a consent agenda. We receive our information well before the board meeting. That gives us time to review that, call staff, and ask any questions that we may have. So there are any items on the consent agenda that you would like to pull off for discussion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So move.
Mayo and Mr. Was that Pruitt or Miller? Pruitt? All right. Any comments, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Good there. We come to the fun part, Ms. Cook.
Good morning, Mr. East, Dr. Evans, and State Board members. It is my honor to present to you the State Board recognition for the month of February. And today we are recognizing the 2024 Mississippi History Teacher of the Year, Ms. Michelle Rayfatch. Ms. Rayfatch, please join Mr. East and Dr. Evans at the front of the boardroom. The Mississippi History Teacher of the Year Award is presented annually by the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History. This is the nation's leading organization dedicated to K-12 American history education. The award recognizes one exceptional American history teacher from each state. In 2024, students, parents, teachers, and administrators nationwide nominated a record 8,500 teachers for this award. Amid a very competitive field, Ms. Rayfatch rose to the top in Mississippi. Ms. Rayfatch is a dedicated educator who teaches history at Pearl River Central High School in the Pearl River County School District. And she has earned numerous awards while making significant contributions to her school and district. She is a 3-time Teacher of the Year and has received the Grant Writer of the Year Award. In 2023, she was named a James Madison Fellow for the state of Mississippi. And this May, she will graduate from Gettysburg College with a master's degree in American history. Ms. Rayfatch is committed to her students as a champion of inquiry-based learning and effectively uses primary sources in her teaching. She brings a wealth of knowledge to her classroom for her more than 14 years of experience in diverse educational settings, including behavioral hospitals, alternative schools, and online education. Ms. Rayfatch recognition as Mississippi's History Teacher of the Year by the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History reflects the incredible advances in history education for our state. This honor empowers her to make remarkable strides for her students. Ms. Rayfatch, you are welcome to make remarks at this time.
Thank you. That was a lot. Thank you so much. I don't know how to follow that up, but I appreciate it so much. It's truly an honor to be here, and I apologize. I wrote just a few paragraphs. Don't let a teacher, especially a history teacher, talk up here, but I had the floor, so I thought I'd take just thank you so much, especially Mr. Shaw's and Ms. Crystal Martin, who are joining me from Pearl River School District. It's an honor to be here. Teaching history is a lot more than just facts and dates. It's about connecting students to their roots, fostering critical thinking, and encouraging them to understand the world through the lens of our rich past. Our students deserve the best, and when you create high expectations, it's incredible to witness the students' continual surpassing of your expectations that you have. When you show up every day for every single one of your students, not just the easy ones or the well-behaved ones, those high achievers, every student, it's amazing to see what they're able to do, and to be that champion and advocate in their corner is so essential for education and the future of academics in our state. Mississippi has a unique and profound history that deserves to be explored and appreciated. I strive to inspire my students to engage with our state's history, from its cultural diversity to its pivotal moments in American history. This award affirms my commitment to creating an inclusive and dynamic learning environment where every student can see themselves in the stories that we study each day. Teaching Mississippi history is a passion that goes well beyond the classroom for me. It's about instilling pride in our cultural heritage, acknowledging our complex past, and encouraging critical thinking about our present and future. This award serves as a reminder of the importance of our work in shaping informed and engaged citizens. It motivates me to continue creating an inclusive learning environment where all voices are heard and valued, and I think together we can foster a deeper understanding of our history, ensuring that the lessons of the past inform our actions today. I'm grateful, so grateful for this recognition, and excited to further inspire the next generation of history enthusiasts, hopefully, in Mississippi, and look forward to continuing this important work, making history come alive each day for our students. Thank you so much.
Was he recruiting you?
Mr. Show's, that was a false statement, so don't worry about that. I was, and Crosby is my witness to this, I was telling her that my current read is a 1945 U.S. history textbook, and I'm most impressed with how it uses primary sources in every point that it makes. So that was what my discussion about was, Mr. Pruitt. I'll send you the book next.
You heard something about a local supplement, though.
We do have very strong local supplements, but most of us below Hattiesburg don't steal from each other like that, so Mr. Show's is fortunate. You just used 3 minutes of your time with that conversation. Let's hear from our state superintendent, Dr. Lance Evans.
Thank you, sir. if I was in New Albany, I would definitely be recruiting you because we do steal in North Mississippi. So there, all right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you, Mr. East. So been a very busy month. I'll roll through this pretty quick. So a couple of things. One, Governor Reeves in his State of the State address praised Mississippi educators, as well as the students, and highlighted the significant gains in academic excellence that we've had over the recent years. Presented MDE's fiscal and legislative priorities to both the House and, Senate education committees moving forward into the next fiscal year. Had some meetings about school consolidation with House Ed Chair Rob Robertson, as well as John Hines, Representative Willie Bailey, and Senator Derek Simmons. The purpose of that was to talk through some work that they've done there and just see where they stand on some of that for us to be able to support our school districts. By no means is my meeting with them a support of any of that. It's purely me kind of getting to see where they are in their process and looking at. I believe they're looking at putting a study group together to look at some of that, and we will have representation on that. I believe I may be one of those people. I would have to look at the list of appointees, but obviously, you know that I'm going to always support our school districts in Mississippi. But again, we do have to make sure that we're pushing forward to do a good job for our students. That's very important. So. Also had a meeting with Representative Donnie Bell about House Bill 1621 and how it relates back to CTE industry certifications. That's associated back with the SQUIB board and Accelerate, and actually what some of those certifications and how they count in the accountability model under the acceleration component. There was some legislation that was passed about 2 years ago that looked at removing some of the accountability points related to industry certifications because they were not in the high demand sectors across the state. So I've gotten some leniency there in order for us to work on that transition in our school districts. On Thursday, February the 13th, it was the deadline for original floor action on general bills. All MDE technical amendments passed the floor. Monday, February the 28th is the deadline for requests for appropriations and revenue bills to be drafted. As far as advisory councils go, we had the Superintendent Advisory Council meeting. This was the first meeting. We're a little behind in that, just getting started. I wanted to have that first meeting about 3 months earlier, but just through the virtue of just trying to get going. We had to push that off, but we have our next meeting scheduled for, I believe it's March. So my goal is to meet every 2 months. And part of that is to talk through, we have a lot of work that we're doing obviously as an agency, but I have several side projects that we're working through that we're getting to the point where we're really fixing to have some of those be pushed forward. And I'm really excited about that because that's my way of like moving the organization forward, because I'm not the type human that just is here to manage the day to day. I'm here to push Mississippi forward. And that's one of the ways that we do that. And also it's the fun stuff that we get to do that directly impacts our students. So had that meeting, and again, we discussed some of the proposed changes to the accountability system. Of course, that's based on recommendations through the Accountability Task Force, and just the positives and potential pitfalls that might be associated with those, and we're getting their perspective. So that's a very unique group. I appreciate them. Also had our second Mississippi Student Advisory Council meeting. It was a virtual meeting. We'll have our final meeting in the next couple of months, which will be in person. It's a large group of students, and I was very pleased to see, even though it was virtual, we had like 90 or so students that joined. So I really appreciate that. That was a great opportunity for us to stay connected. In that, we had representatives from the Woodward Hines Education Fund Get to College program that shared information, and also we shared valuable resources about post-secondary opportunities, moving forward after their K-12 experience. As far as partnerships and stakeholder meetings, again, the Accountability Task Force met. The goal of that was to make sure and shore up, if you will, the work and the progress that had been made. I'm one of those people that, in the end, I want everybody to understand what they're supporting and what they're not supporting. That way we clearly communicate to each other where we are and where we stand on things. And that's a great group of educators. It's a diverse group: educators, psychometricians, some business and industry. You know, it's a great, unique group of people that help make those, not necessarily, they're not making decisions, they're making recommendations. When I was on the accountability task force, that was communicated well to me, because lots of times I like to be the one that sometimes gets to obviously influence the decision, but it's a recommendation making body. Had a meeting with MEC. Holly Spivey and I met with Scott Waller and Gene Massey from the Mississippi Economic Council to update them on the accountability model and the continued work towards workforce partnerships, as well as where we are on hiring a workforce development person for the state. We're getting really close to being able to roll out that advertisement, if you will, for hiring that individual. And we also talked about the creation of that separate accountability model, if you will, that relates back to the workforce CT. I don't really have a name for it yet, just to understand what we're trying to accomplish. And that will be married to, potentially be married to our current academic accountability model. My goal is our current academic accountability model, and I keep saying academic because that's what it was originally designed for. We have been, over the years, putting pieces and elements into it from a workforce standpoint that it really was not originally designed for. And my goal is for us to be able to articulate exactly what an ABCDF is, because that's a fair question. You know, what it constitutes an A, what constitutes a B. That's part of that whole looking at the transition and distribution of A through Fs and the statistical methodology and how those will be moving forward. But that needs to be left alone, because it has been doing what it was designed to do for years, and it has helped drive Mississippi forward academically. My goal is for us to create this separate, I'm calling it accountability model. I don't really, just as a general term, but and have a way that it can potentially impact as an overall rating, not necessarily impact the academic A through F piece, but maybe have distinctions based on district's efforts in these endeavors from a workforce CTE standpoint, and potentially somehow create a method in which they can report maybe a local priorities, what the individual districts consider success, because that's different, and there's been a big push for that over the recent years. A lot of that ties back, a lot of that ties back to some of the portrait of a graduate pieces, the districts, some of the work they've done. And I think it's important for us to have a way for them to be able to communicate that as well. Had meetings with some people from the state auditor's office. The basis of that conversation was around our districts and the lack of access they have to accounting firms to conduct their financial audits. It's just a tough deal. I would tell you, if a firm was to be open that completely focused on financial audits, they would have a backlog of work, I can assure you. So it's tough everywhere to get these done. Also had a meeting, our second or third meeting with the Mississippi Superintendent Institute, our group there, creating our certification. Moving forward is a very, very beneficial meeting. Made a lot of progress there. And that's with our NCEE partners, as well as the task force of people that have been put together to create that. And the goal again is for us to start that in June or July, and we would accomplish it over the course of a year. And from what I'm seeing across the state, I'm seeing a lot of openings in districts for superintendents. So it looks like we'll have a fairly long list of people potentially that will be, depending on where they are in their career, participating in that. And again, I'm going to invite all superintendents. It doesn't matter how long they've been in the seat to participate, because I think it's very important that all of us do that. I'm going through it myself, so that I think that's a good sign. That's everyone's on the same page, and it's like a culture shift when we all support that. Also had a K-12 workforce development meeting at Mississippi State with the RCU. In that, we're developing a K-12 workforce development guide, and creating a K-12 workforce development, that coordinator position with MDE. Mr. Farrell and I met last night and looking at some of the work because the RCU is helping combine this and helping us create a roadmap, if you will, to build this information out. And we're to the point to where tomorrow, it's not today, right? It's tomorrow. Tomorrow, we have another reconvening. It'll be a virtual meeting with that task force, getting more information from them. And this is what we'll build on to create the strategic planning piece for each of the 8 ecosystems that have been created through Accelerate and based on the high demand areas, the need for high demand programming in each of those ecosystems. All right, so MPB, we're working with them in collaboration with creating a synchronous remote learning program. In this, we'll be able to impact somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,600 to 6,000 students, depending on the number of educators that we're able to hire. We've already had one proof of concept meeting with MDE leadership and MPB. I'm very, very impressed with the work that MPB, I'm very difficult to impress. I'm very impressed with the work that MPB has put forth on this. I need to give them a shout out. And we have a additional proof of concept meeting with House and Senate Ed leadership, as well as some other House members and Senate members, because it will take some appropriation in order for us to get this up and running. We've already found a location in an MDE building that we can house these teachers, and it will be a unique way of operating. The goal is to put yourself out of business because we put people into the pipeline. But right now we have a need in our districts for this support. And we will also build it out to where we have wraparound services. So been a lot of work done on that front. That's to get it to the point that it is at the speed at which we've gotten it there. Like, we move fast. That's how we operate here. So had another meeting. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, there's a lot going on. Another meeting with AP College Board, previewing the class of 2024's AP participation as well as performance results. And looking at it from a national and a state level. Now, those results will be released on February the 25th to the general public. Had a meeting with ACT and met with representatives from ACT to discuss how the ACT and ACT work keys promote college and career readiness across our state. Had some speaking engagements, met with the Future Farmers of America at their legislative breakfast yesterday. I will say, where I grew up, FFA is a huge deal. And it was a huge part of helping develop me into the human being I was able to become because of the leadership opportunities. And I said that yesterday. I mean, I called my teachers out, by name, how much I appreciate them. And those opportunities they gave me over the years to grow. And it's like I always say, they allowed you to fail but not become a failure, if that makes sense. So it's very, very important. The Mass Winter Conference I delivered a presentation to the superintendents there and talked about the state's progress, as well as potential revisions to the accountability system, current and future initiatives, those projects, if you will. We're getting a lot of positive feedback from those because all those are specifically designed to impact students in the school district. Some relate back to some policy work, but this is like boots on the ground. Like, this is immediate impacts to districts. It's stuff, to be honest with you, it's stuff that as a superintendent, I felt that we needed. So I'm very excited about some of those projects that are rolling out. And we have several more, and we will continue to add to that list as we go. So also, the Children's Foundation, Mississippi Children's Summit, spoke there on a panel as a respondent to the keynote address. Dr. Michael Rich, I would encourage you to look him up and do a little reading about some of he's a very accomplished human being. Most of his work centered around students and the impact of social media on their life, as well as the impact of technology on their life. He has a very different perspective, and he gave me a lot to think about. He gave me a lot to think about from a parent standpoint and how I operate with it personally, and how that looks at and how you look at and how it impacts your children. So it was a very good couple of hours. Also spoke to the Mississippi Park and Rec Association in their conference. I know that may sound a little different, but the reason why, and I have tried my best, that anybody, whether it's a Rotary group or a Kiwanis group or Mississippi Park and Rec, I have done my best to make every single time someone asks me to come speak, because I think that's very important, especially in Mississippi, because that's how you build relationships. And that's how you make sure that when you need something, you call somebody and they help you, because they know that you're there for them. And it's vice versa. So we have It does require a lot of leaving at 5 in the morning and speaking and getting back here by lunch to get back to work. So, but that's very, very, very important to me that we do that. District and school visits, the college scholarship surprise we had at Pearl a couple of weeks ago. Time runs together on me. With that, College Board issued a $40,000 scholarship to a Pearl High School student. Scholarship is part of an outreach program, and I believe that young lady is going to a specialized college, correct me if I'm wrong, in Florida to be a aerospace engineer. So she's got it together. So I got it right, Miss Jean, right? Miss Cook? Okay, good. I'm surprised I remembered that. I was just very impressed by her. Also, had a Milk and Education Award winner. We helped deliver that surprise to Amanda Duplessis down at Oak Grove Elementary School. She was completely surprised. Anytime you come to work and someone says you have an assembly and someone decides to give you $25,000 based on your body of work, that's a pretty doggone good day. So she was very surprised, and it was outstanding how that went. Made me feel good. Also made me feel good to walk into when you walk into elementary school, I probably hugged 150 kids because you know how that works. And it reminded me of that and why you do what you do. Also had a media interview with WLBT talking about the NAEP results and the improvements to education, obviously across the state. Couple pieces. We do have a presentation with our NAEP results today on the agenda. But a couple just real quick. We already know most of these. Our fourth grade reading scores, now we're 9th, up from 49th. That's a pretty good leap. In 2013, our math scores in fourth grade are now 16th, up from 50th. As well as looking, and one of the things that I've always looked at from a data standpoint as an educator is what are the subgroups look like? Because we can look at it overall. But I want to know how the individuals are performing based on the subgroup in my school district. Because that's how you move the needle for humans on an individual level. So our African American fourth grade students now rank third among their peers nationally in reading and math scores. Our Hispanic fourth grade students rank first among their peers nationally for reading scores, as well as second for math. And our economically disadvantaged fourth graders rank first in the nation among their peers in reading and second in math. That's huge. That's huge. Huge, huge, huge. I'm so proud of that. And that's a body of work that started years ago. I will tell you, when those results came out, I'm old school. I'm the type of person that gives credit back to the ones that originally started that. The first person I sent a text message to is I text Dr. Wright, and I said, this is an example of the work you put into place years ago. Because that was under her leadership that happened. So I believe you give credit where credit's due. And it's our job now to push that work forward. So she appreciated that. I hope it brightened her day. So again, our 8th grade scores are held steady nationally, while many other scores have declined. Dr. Gavin, sadly, she is retiring from MDE, and she's been here, I believe it's 8 or 9 years, 8, 9, 10 years. I can't remember exactly.
Vote on that?
Sir? We don't. Well, I tried. So I'll tell you, anytime someone calls me to their office, I go in and I typically, they say, well, I got something to talk to you about. And my standard operational line is as fine as long as you're not quitting on me. Well, that's the first time anybody ever actually handed me a letter of resignation. And I said, guess what? I don't want it. I don't want it. And I was like, I'm not using that line anymore. So we deeply appreciate her service and commitment to MDE. The deal is especially in the financial world, there are tons of opportunities in private business and industry that our employees can go have an opportunity to work and make a lot more money. But I will tell you, Dr. Gavin and her commitment to this organization is outstanding, and she has helped me so much understand the financial operations of MDE. We actually, and I know she probably thought, why in the world he's tying me up for 3 hours or 4 hours, but she sat down with me and we went through the individual internal workings of the budget here, and I did make sure she would not change her cell phone number, and that she would come and help me. I said, because we're gonna have to, Doc, we're gonna have to. I told her, I said, I'll just buy you lunch when I do that. So thank you.
About $19.95 a minute. So
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We'll just go eat lunch at a nice place. How about that? All right, so, okay, so one quick thing. Today, I believe you'll find on the agenda, we're hiring, even though you see that those increases in reading across Mississippi and our K through 3 world, you'll see we're hiring an additional 22 literacy coaches. I'm very excited about that. That gets us back up to 60 because we know with those numbers, it had increased our student to coach ratio, which is not the goal. And I think it's very important that you understand, I feel compelled to say this. Our model is not a tutoring model. Our model is a coaching model in which we build capacity of the teachers to continue the work. So, and it's not that anyone's approach is right or wrong, but in moving forward, because, you know, we have a 4 through 8 initiative that we're working on from a literacy standpoint, as well as probably a 2 through 6. I think we're probably going to be 2 through 6 from a math standpoint, because we know that those, and you'll see in the NAEP results, anywhere we have what we feel is a deficiency, the way I always operate is you see a way we're moving it forward and correcting it, because that's how we continue to grow. But it's very important that as we evolve, that we will always hold steady to that coaching model. So anytime you see people talk about the reading or math model that we utilize, just know it's a coaching model. And while there are opportunities out there for tutoring and remediation, a lot of that is a district-driven piece. But understand that we will build our own, and we will not let other people dictate to us what we do, because the proof is there. The proof is in the body of work. So I believe in giving shout-outs to people when they're doing positive things. Of course, so many people are doing positive things. These are just the ones here. I get myself in trouble, won't I? But in this, with those additional literacy coaches, there was a lot of heavy lifting that happened to change that EIR process and to build it out to where, because a lot of those people hadn't had raises in like years, and it was because of the way it was currently set up. And what the team did was create a model in which our employees didn't have to reapply for their jobs, as well as something that mimics more of what you see in a school district, because we know teachers get raises each year, you know, based on the system from a state standpoint, but also districts have separate salary processes that they go through to look at increasing like local supplements. So I've created that model, and that'll help us recruit as well as retain our coaches, because our coaches could leave and go work in school districts and make you know, considerably more money. But I have to say thank you so much to our superintendents and principals in our districts that allow our coaches to work on that EIR model, because they employ them, they come work with us, and then they become, let's call them the fiscal agent, if you will, for those employees. And lots of times it's them being willing to let their best come and work with us. So thank you. That's people who understand the big picture and are trying to help Mississippi move forward. So thank you so much to our administrators, our principals, and our superintendents. But Dr. Nowell, Jill Hoda, Kelly Crane, Melissa Beck, outstanding lift there, as well as Monique Corley and Kim Wiggins in changing and helping develop that process. So huge deal there. Last piece. As some of the side projects that I talked about, so Dr. Boone and her shop, as well as Wendy Clemens, have done an outstanding job in helping get the synchronous piece going with MPB, as well as working on, and we had in our subcommittee meeting yesterday, Mr. East, we talked about our Bridge to Careers pathway, and what that is it is a way for us to, I've said this before, I think it's a travesty when we have issues where our students are with us for 12 and a half years, if you will, and have maintained good attendance, have maintained the appropriate GPAs, and just hadn't passed one of our end-of-course assessments. Now, I think we have to have those to continue moving Mississippi forward, but we have to have a path to make sure that student can still get a high school diploma. So we're creating this system, and actually we have an individual that will help create the curriculum for this. It's a second semester of their senior year last option, if you will, and it has lots of parameters. You don't create something like this without putting lots of parameters on it. So it has lots of parameters on it that ensure that people are implementing it with fidelity, but it's a way for us to make sure, I've got to say, we create pathways of success with no dead ends for all students. That's just a way for us to create an additional pathway for our students. So I know that was a long report, but I promise I went as fast as I could.
I got to cross off 6 items off of my report. Ms. Werner, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. I just want to clarify what you said. Was it fourth grade that we, in English, that we went from 49 to 9?
Yep.
And we went from 50 to 16 in math?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I want to share that with some people up north, so thank you.
Share that and keep your snow. Let's see, what did Dr. Evans not talk about that was on my list? First, let me say, MSBA has their conference Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. With your approval at the end of this meeting, I know that Kate and Crosby and I will be on a panel about state school boards and the student leadership that we get from that. Also, Dr. Gavin, thank you. I think a lot of folks don't know how many personal phone calls you make to superintendents like me to make sure that we're keeping things right, and you have been a valuable resource for, I know, a lot of us in your world and how things work. So thank you very much for that service. Personally, I remember you taking care of me at least one time where I appreciate it very much. That phone call was important and meant a lot to us in the Gulfport School District. So thank you very much for that. Now to the fun part of our meeting is we get to hear from our students. Not that Dr. Evans isn't fun sometimes. Anyway, I will say, Lance, thank you for the work you do. One of the things that we talked about coming on was moving across the state, getting in school districts, and you're doing that, and I think that's powerful, and so I appreciate that very much. And I kid Deborah all the time about the travel forms I sign, so I know that you're getting out there and doing what you need to do to represent us, and your work and that body of work that you're able to share today is exactly what we need to do to make sure we continue to move our state forward. So all kidding aside that we do, thank you very much for what you're doing every day. All right, Kate, your turn, senior rep.
All right, well, I'm happy to be here this month just to kind of catch up on what I've been doing. Our dance team attended the National Dance Team Championship in Orlando, Florida at Disney World in January. So it was a fun time to get to, it was the first time going as a varsity team, and so just getting to show everyone what we've been working on and show our school how far we've come as a program. It was a great opportunity. I had a great time. What else? Monday, I was down here for our soccer state championship games where we brought home wins in both boys and girls teams. It's our first time our boys won, but our girls have won a few times. So that was, again, a really exciting opportunity. I was also selected as my high school's Lindy Callahan nominee for Scholar Athlete. So I'll be working on that application and stuff. It's a great honor. It's the first time they chose a dance team member, so I was very excited that our AD supports our spirit squads as well. This Friday, or tomorrow, I guess, I'm kind of messed up from the snow days. I have my pharmacy school interview at Ole Miss for early entry, so wish me luck with that. And then Dr. Evans actually did a kind of good job of tying in what I'm going to talk about today, which is the opportunities that come with College Board and AP. So as our test scores are getting higher, we kind of open more doors for our high school students and even, in some schools, 8th graders. So Mississippi is one of the most economically and racially diverse states in America, and this is evident in the classrooms as well. However, rural communities often face limited access to advanced class placement, AP courses, and higher education resources, making these opportunities not necessarily one of the first considerations in educational planning. And while the idea of equity access in AP and dual credit classes is not new, another important aspect to consider is the role of College Board in fostering such opportunities. College Board, which administers the PSAT, SAT, and AP testing, has developed a new initiative aimed at recognizing the academic achievements of students from minority groups. This recognition through AP testing or high SAT/PSAT scores can have a significant impact on students in Mississippi. College Board's National Recognition Program is gaining traction across the South and beyond. It offers students from diverse backgrounds opportunities that might otherwise be out of reach. One of the greatest benefits of College Board's national recognition is the opportunity it provides for financial assistance. National recognition can lead to full or partial scholarships, including free tuition and housing at many colleges and universities across the country. At a time when the cost of higher education is a financial burden for many families, this recognition can make attending college a reality for students who might not otherwise have the means. For example, I was personally able to qualify for national recognition through the University of Mississippi after passing 2 AP course exams before my junior year of high school and living in a community classified as rural. Students can also qualify for recognition by performing well at the PSAT or SAT and qualifying as a minority group or living in a rural community. The benefits of this recognition are clear. It relieves the financial burden of college tuition, which is a major obstacle for many families in Mississippi. Promoting more AP opportunities, particularly in rural communities, can significantly increase college enrollment rates. When students have access to advanced coursework and the potential for financial assistance through national recognition, they are more likely to pursue higher education. This, in turn, can also contribute to higher high school graduation rates as students see the tangible benefits of their hard work. Furthermore, increasing the number of students who attend college, especially those who stay in state, like those attending the University of Mississippi, could help with Mississippi's student retention rates. By making higher education more accessible, we are not only investing in the futures of our students, but also helping to grow and retain talent within Mississippi. As an AP Scholar with Honor and a national recognition recipient, I can personally attest to the benefits of AP coursework and College Board national recognition. This is not the first time I've spoken about the need for more AP opportunities in Mississippi, and it most likely won't be the last. The advantages of AP courses are immense, not only in terms of academic preparation, but also in terms of the financial opportunities they unlock. Since national recognition is still a relatively new concept, it's crucial that we spread the word to schools, educators, and counselors. By informing them about these programs, we can ensure that more students are aware of the opportunities available to them. Access to AP courses and the benefits of national recognition are too important to remain underutilized in rural areas. And together we can make a significant impact on the future of Mississippi's students. Thank you.
I want to dovetail in. I want to remind everybody that the list of things that Kate talked about, dance teams, debate teams, we all need to remember that just about 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, there are busloads of children traveling across this state and across this region going to competitions, both academic, FAA, dance teams, and how important that is to the high school experience in our state. So to those sponsors that take the charter bus to Orlando, leave at 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever that is, thanks to them too. But also Kate has pounded on us the whole time about the importance of AP and doors and opportunities that opens for all of our children in Mississippi. So thank you very much for that information, Kate. Junior Rep, Mr. Parker.
Morning. Just to talk a little bit about what Kate said, personal experience, AP classes have been the most rewarding and rigorous experiences I've had in the public school area, just because they create that environment for you to really grow just with the challenging material. As always, I'm excited to provide an update on our mentoring journey down in Gulfport. Since our last meeting, we've officially held the first session between West Harrison High School and North Gulfport Elementary. I brought some pictures for y'all to see as I present, and I'm happy to report that our first meeting was a success. Our first day was filled with energy and anticipation. The high school mentors arrived eager to meet their mentees, and as expected, there were some initial nerves on both sides. However, once introductions were made and the activities began, the room quickly became filled with conversation and laughter. It was inspiring to see the mentors once again step naturally into these leadership roles, offering guidance and encouragement to their younger counterparts. It was exactly as we had seen with the previous program. For me personally, one powerful moment was watching a mentor patiently encourage a student who initially refused to leave his classroom. He'd had a tough week, poor behavior, not being very responsive. He was hesitant, but as the session progressed, they began to engage. The student asked questions, he gave high fives, and by the end was walking happily alongside the mentor back to class. Moments like these for me reaffirm why these programs are so important. By the end of the session, mentors and mentees alike were already looking forward to the next meeting, demonstrating the immediate positive impact that these programs have. We plan to do the post-assessment within the next 30 days, and we will continue to refine our mentoring strategies, always focusing on impacting student engagement and development. Now, beyond mentoring, I also want to briefly touch on an issue that has been in the news lately: cell phone policy in schools. Senate Bill 2151 is currently moving through our state Congress. As we all know, technology can be an extremely powerful educational tool, but it can also be a major distraction. From my student perspective, I've seen the best results in classrooms where students put their phone up you keep the phones away from the students during class time in like a pouch on the wall or a box by the door. And then in between classes, the students can take the phones and they can use them freely. This gives students freedom with their phones while preventing distractions during class time. This is just my 2 cents on this issue. This is just where I've seen the best results in my school district. As always, thank you all for your continued support, and I look forward to sharing more mentoring updates soon.
Very much. Any questions for our two student representatives?
Well done.
Thank you, Mary.
Congratulations on the championship, Lindy Callahan. Good luck on the interview good luck on
I will tell you that I know Lindy Callahan very well. He and my grandfather lived back to back. He's a good man, fine football coach from the University of Mississippi way back in the day. So good luck on that honor. Maybe one day when you're down there, I can introduce you to him. So the academic achievement pre-K-12 early childhood subcommittee met. Dr. Evans has already given you a very detailed report on the portfolio option in lieu of end-of-course assessments. So Ms. Clemens, I won't be mentioning that part in my report. Ms. Dent also gave our committee some information concerning the Mississippi Early Learning Guidelines serving classrooms of 3- and 4-year-old children. It will come to us in March. She was trying to give Gina and I the heads up on what changes are going to be made. At the end of the day, this will be a very powerful document that school districts can use to build and sustain strong 3- and 4-year-old programs across our state. We also talked about a college and career readiness unit called Digital Literacy and Citizenship. This is Ms. Clemens' house as well. Basically, it's a CCR framework to ensure that AI objectives and standards are integrated appropriately to move us forward. Also, how the citizenship and the proper use of those cell phones that we're going to hang up on the wall, I guess, for during class and use them out in the real world will come about. That also will come before us through the APA or in the APA process and then come back to us in April. Thank you very much for those reports. Oh, no, I don't mind. Look, I don't have to say as much. I'm glad you covered Ms. Clemens' work. All right, let's see what we have here on our agenda. First, we have an action item, Dr. Vanderford, approval of the amendment of Mississippi ESSA Consolidated State Plan. And, of course, Mr. Burrows.
Good morning. I think in Dr. Evans' open remarks, he covered all of our items as well. But I do have just a few things to add. In addition to Dr. Evans' point, there has been a lot going on at the agency, and what we'll discuss with you with item 1, and many of the items today are certainly collaborative efforts across the agency. We have a lot going on in assessment and accountability, and just a couple of updates. We're anxiously awaiting the release of an RFP next week. Hopefully, that will be released by ITS on Tuesday for what we refer to and have mentioned to many of you that as our mega assessment contract. So we want to have all of our content areas for the assessments for both MAP and MAP A, the alternate assessment. We would like to have that under one vendor. And so we're very excited about that moving forward. We do anticipate a great deal of response because looking at our NAEP scores and everything else that we have to brag about, everyone wants to partner and work in Mississippi. So we're looking forward to that. Spring assessments are also approaching, and with ongoing legislative session, we're anxiously awaiting to see how any bills that may pass may impact our work that we've been working on through the Accountability Task Force. And so Dr. Evans spoke a little bit to that, but one thing that I do want to emphasize is the work of the Accountability Task Force goes far beyond staff and assessment and accountability. I mean, we rely on Mr. Craman's team with all of his OTSS staff for the data piece and the programming piece, and Mr. Farrell and Dr. Boone and their staff for the workforce development and the academic side of the house, and then the comms team and Holly and everybody, because it impacts everything we do in the agency. And so you'll see all of that coupled together in the amendments to the state plan, school improvement, as well as Alan walks through these. So one thing I do want to note that many of you may recognize is that this is an action item for approval to submit when normally it's an information item. If you'll recall, a couple of years or so, or I'll lose track of time, we had an audit from the Office of Inspector General where they looked at, Mississippi was the first state selected for that audit, by the way, where they looked at our implementation of our consolidated state plan in accordance with the federal law. And one of the things that we were cited for, although we pushed back on that citation, was that we made changes to the business rules of our accountability system through the process of the state board and our state law with public comment with Secretary of State. We made those changes first and then submitted those changes to the Department of Ed. And we believe that we had the ability to do that as long as those changes were non-substantial. But they said that it didn't matter if the changes were substantial or non-substantial, that all changes had to go to Ed first, and then we worked through our state process. So this is in the reverse of what we're accustomed to. We've still worked through the stakeholder engagement process from the task force through the Technical Advisory Committee and with the Commission on School Accreditation before bringing this to you. But with your approval today, we'll follow through with the public comment process, and Alan will talk to this in detail, that's required by the Department of Ed. But then as we work through the detailed business rules of how this will impact our assessment and accountability systems and school improvement identifications, et cetera, that will come back to the state board for approval, and then we'll follow through our APA process where the LEAs have the opportunity to comment for us and then bring that back to the board for approval. So all the input, stakeholder engagement, and the ability to provide public comment still exists. It's just in the reverse before the governor submits this. So Holly and Alan and I met with the governor's staff and explained that it's reverse in what it has been in the past. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alan, and we'll walk through all of the changes in the submission and then entertain your questions.
Okay, so as Dr. Vanderford mentioned, this is kind of the culmination of several months of work to address proposed changes to the accountability system. And this is our first step. Of course, accountability touches on all of our strategic plan goals. I won't go over those in detail. I think the board knows the importance of accountability and its impact to our education system. These are an overview of the changes that we're proposing. You may may be aware of some of these. One of them is resetting the summative ratings for schools and districts, the A through F. We won't be addressing that today. That'll come back later to you after we have data from this accountability year, and we can use that data to set those standards. But it will be reflected in this S amendment to some degree, which I'll speak to. There is a proposal of a new readiness component to replace acceleration in college and career readiness in the model. Updated annual goals for the EL progress component, which is a ESSA requirement in accountability. Removal of U.S. history from accountability measures, and changes to the exit requirements for federal designations, which I'll go into more in detail. Okay, so I first mentioned about changes to a creation of a readiness component, and this area circled is where it currently exists in the accountability system. So we've had acceleration in college and career readiness in the model to some degree. The effort over the past several months has tried to address an expansion of these measures to recognize different pathways or outcomes for students, and to provide some more flexibility on how we recognize achievement in high schools around these areas. This is the proposed readiness index that's coming out. So again, it will encompass a lot more into these measurements, and it combines acceleration in college and career readiness into this 150-point component. The first row at the top is acceleration, and acceleration for the most part remains unchanged. It still recognizes post-secondary credits, so dual credit courses, AP courses, industry certifications that students can earn through CTE courses. Those things will remain in the model at 50 points. The only change in this one, there was some fractional weighting that was applied to participation calculations, and that would be removed to make participation more accurately reflect the actual student population that is participating in accelerated courses. And then we're retaining the additional fractional weighting in the performance piece that recognizes students that take multiple accelerated courses or programs. The second row is a new one that we're calling achievement. This recognizes different student outcomes for completion status, and adds in a recognition for students that will receive a standard diploma in the 5th year, or receive a high school equivalency that is recognized by the State Department, yet to be defined in the business rules, that is initiated through their local school district. So that's an addition in that second box you see there.
Alan?
Yes, sir.
What this portfolio option would be inserted?
Graduate portfolio is not currently included in this.
This goes through, would that be inserted there?
But it would impact the graduation rate, because those students would count as graduates. So that's where, I think I'm addressing your question, is where you will see that show up in the accountability system is through the graduation rate component. Because they'll be traditional graduates.
Thank you.
Yes, if they meet that graduation option.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
So you'll see these fractional measures above the boxes here. For example, what I just talked about, a 5th year graduate receives a 0.25 over 1. That just reflects the student level points accumulation in the accountability model. So a traditional, in this measurement, a traditional graduate receives a 1/2 of a point for achievement. Moving up in distinction, a student that receives a diploma endorsement with academic career technical or JROTC endorsement would receive a 3/4 of a point in this model. And at the highest distinguished level would be a diploma with a distinguished academic endorsement, or an equivalent career technical endorsement or JRTC endorsement. Again, graduation rate is still in the model. This is just an additional recognition of different completion distinctions in the model. And then the lower row that you see is what we're calling the assessment model. This is similar to what we've seen as a college and career readiness model component in the current model, and that's the recognition of achievement on ACT and ACT work keys. That continues to be in this component. However, it is expanded. Now there's recognition for ACT work keys bronze level, and then there are recognitions for ACT silver, gold, and platinum without any tie to CTE completion or anything like that that was currently in the model before. Also for ACT scores, in the existing model, we had recognition for component scores. This switches to a super score because ACT has now moved to a super score. So what that means is students can take multiple administrations of the ACT, and their highest component score on the ACT can be used to create a super score for their ACT result. So this recognizes a super score at different levels of achievement and gives credit according to those different levels of distinction across the component. Again, this readiness index has 150 points assigned to it. So I need to touch on the weighting and where we moved those points in the model. High schools would still retain 1,000-point accountability overall possible score. The points have been shifted away from proficiency on U.S. history to be included in the new readiness component, and then the existing 50 points from college and career readiness and acceleration are also included, so that brings us up to a possible 150 points. Now, you'll see some reduction in these points reflected on this table. This assumes that a school has an English language progress component. That's that bottom row. If a student has enough EL students to have that measure, 5% is pulled from the other components to award 5% of the model to English language progress. So that's why you see readiness here is 142.5. And I will go into details on our changes to English language progress. This says proficiency, but progress. So this is another, in our attempt to try to roll all of these changes into one planned change, English language progress is another one of those components that we knew we needed to make some changes to. And also, we also have a new English language proficiency exam that's being used for the first time this year, and that's the ELPA 21 assessment. In prior years, our English language progress test was the Lost Links assessment. So we have a new assessment this year. The assessment is not comparable to the prior, so that causes some complications in how we measure progress from one year to the next. Also changes how we need to reflect those progress measures. And so we see this as an opportunity to refine the accountability model around English language progress. So what we're required to do under ESSA is to measure progress for English language learners, and then the state is required to determine those progress expectations and the timeline for exit of English language progress students or English language learner students. Currently, our goal in the accountability model is that EL students will reach overall proficiency within 5 years of being served, and they are given annual progress goals to meet, and a score is assigned to the student based on their percentage of progress from one year to the next that ranges from 0 to 1, and that is aggregated up to the school level to give a school score for English language progress that's included in the model. As I mentioned, we have a new assessment, but we also have some national data, research data, that Mississippi served as one of 7 states in a national granted study of English language progress, primarily to look at how do English learners naturally progress in their process of learning English, and how does that feed into accountability systems, and how is it reflected? So one of the findings that this study found was that typically students take up to 6 years or a little over 6 years to reach proficiency. And that didn't really match up with what we were using in Mississippi. We were going up to 5 years. So that's one change that we're proposing, is to allow students to have up to 6 years to exit. And it's based on their initial proficiency level of entry. The other thing that we need to do is adjust how we establish those annual goals for EL students. This is an example from Nebraska of the ELPA 21, so this is the new assessment, and these are some proficiency levels that have been described for that assessment in Nebraska, and shows how students should progress from one year to the next, depending on where they enter in their baseline year, their proficiency level in their baseline year. So this is an example of how we might define progress moving forward with ELPA 21. This hasn't been completely defined out yet. We want to get data from Mississippi from this spring, so we'll give the ELPA 21 assessment in March, and we'll get some data that we can use to actually get actual values for EL students in Mississippi and compare those to progress, what progress looked like on lost links versus other states that use ELPA 21. So I included this table as an example. I do want to point out that the initial amendment that was provided to the Commission on School Accreditation had this example table in it. We have since removed the example table from the amendment, and we did that just to not box ourselves in as we submit this amendment to the U.S. Department, as we still have some decisions to make around how we define progress.
Before you go on, lost links to new program, comparability part, how are we addressing that? You may have said it and I may have missed it.
I did not. I just mentioned that it was a challenge. There is some language in the amendment that the department proposes to create an equalizing, a bridge scale, if you will, to try to calculate progress from the prior assessment to the current assessment through statistical linking. Again, we have to work on doing that when we get some data back after March.
Okay.
But that's the plan, is to actually measure progress from lost links to ELPA 21 this year. We had initially asked, we had initially asked for a waiver from the U.S. Department to not measure EL progress this year, and they declined that waiver request.
Just remember, there's about 50 school districts that want that data because they'll have it before we do if we're not careful. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's the only questions I've gotten on this, is that very comparability piece. So thank you.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because normally school districts right now would know their progress goals for their EL students. They don't have that data. Yeah. The last piece that I'll touch on is federal designation. So as you know, we have a combined state and federal accountability model, and one of the requirements of our model is to produce these federal designations, and there's three types. There's comprehensive support and improvement, or CSI, targeted support and improvement, or TSI, and additional targeted support and improvement, or ATSI. And these have different levels of intervention, CSI being the most the highest level of intervention, and then ATSI at the lower end. The changes that we're proposing is specifically regarding the exit requirements of CSI and ATSI schools, and that is around the fact that currently our model looks at the progress of the school across what we call deciles. But that is a threshold that's established that the schools show a sufficient amount of improvement from their year of identification to the year of consideration for exit. And right now that is established as you cross over from one letter grade assignment to the next, or you cross over the midpoint of the letter grade bands. And so it's an establishment of what is sufficient progress. The state has to define what is sufficient progress for the school. We want to decouple the letter grade assignments from our federal school designations for a couple reasons. One, it really isn't equal in the sense that some schools that enter could be close to a letter grade cutoff, so they may have less progress to show than another school that may be closer to a midpoint or the beginning of a letter grade assignment. The other is that as we move forward with changes to our accountability system, we want the flexibility to make, to define what is an A through F letter grade for schools and districts, which may not necessarily be tied specifically to their composite score. So we may have some other type of criterion reference that we use assign those letter grades. And those are things that we're going to be continuing to work through the rest of this year. So we want to remove that from our ESSA plan and instead define progress for a school as making some overall improvement from their year of designation to their year of consideration for exit. Really, the harder lift is the first part of this piece that you see is that they no longer meet the requirements for identification. That they're no longer in the bottom 5%. And then the second piece is that they have not met that first definition while declining. And the way that could occur is if other schools in the state decline, then they could still be in the bottom 5% and not have, or they could be out of the bottom 5% and no longer meet that first requirement, but they haven't actually improved. So that's the change. The only change we want to do is remove the letter grade, the tie to the letter grade, and make it that the school shows improvement on their composite score from their year of entry to the year of exit. I know that was a lot to say that wasn't too confusing. One other piece, there's been a change in statute regarding the Achievement School District and the District of Transformation. So the language that I have on this slide is the current policy that defines how a school or district moves into a district of transformation. The Achievement School District language is not in state law anymore, so we want to update that in the ESSA plan as well, so that you'll see those edits. This is the timeline that we have for moving forward with this. So you'll see right now we need to get the ESSA amendment submitted to the U.S. Department. The U.S. Department can take 8 to 10 months possibly to respond to an ESSA amendment request. We don't anticipate that any of these changes in the ESSA amendment will have pushback. These are things that other states are doing. There's nothing novel here. The other thing that we need to do after this is to amend the business rules for accountability. We want to do that with a timeline such that districts know what the business rules are before they begin the next school year. So we will do that as soon as we can. And then the next piece will be to set performance standards so that A through F letter grade criteria for school designations, school and district designations. We want to do that when we get some fresh data. So that would happen this summer, early fall. And again, we want to try to get those cuts out to districts as soon as we can into the beginning of the next school year so they know what their goals need to be for the year. And then we'll have the first results from the new accountability model and new performance standards in the fall of 26. Any questions around all of that?
Questions? So from the Office of Chief Accountability, do I have a motion to approve item 1?
So moved.
Mary Warner with a motion. Mary Warner with a motion. Miller with a second. Any other comments, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. Y'all are still on deck with some informational pieces.
So next we'll move into a report of our graduation rates and our dropout rates. And Timothy Scott is going to join me at the table to present this data.
Welcome, Mr. Scott.
Good morning. In your board backup materials, you do have the full 82-page graduation and dropout rates for the state and every school and district. The rates are also disaggregated by subgroup, and this presentation will look at a high-level overview of that full 82-page report. Graduation rates are directly tied to Goal 2. Every student graduates from high school and is ready for college and career. little background or context. In accordance with state and federal law, graduation and dropout rates were calculated following the four-year adjusted cohort method. And the 2025 rates are based on students who entered the ninth grade for the first time during the 2020-2021 academic year. This slide displays some common language and definitions around grad rates. It defines the four possible final statuses for students at the close of the four-year cohort window. A student can either be a graduate, a completer, still enrolled, or a dropout. Reminder of residual pandemic impact. Waivers were granted for high school end-of-course assessments in the 2019-2020 and the 2020-2021 school years. For this cohort that we're discussing today, students who participated in those end-of-course assessments during their ninth grade year would have received waivers on those assessments. This graphic illustrates the graduation and dropout rate trends in Mississippi for the last 12 years. The graduation rate for the most recent cohort is 89.2%, and that is down 0.2 of a percentage point from last year's record high of 89.4%. But it is still above the most recent national average graduation rate of 86.6%. At the bottom of this graphic, you'll see the statewide dropout rate held steady at 8.5%. Here we have a state-level summary of graduation and dropout rates by subgroup. Here's the same subgroup summary with changes from 2024 to 2025. Red indicates a negative change and green indicates a positive change. This next chart shows the breakdown of the four final statuses that a student can have at the end of the cohort window, whether that's graduate, completer, still enrolled, or dropout. It shows that information for the last 6 years.
Showing 2025 because it was released in 2025. It looks backwards.
Because 2025 is meaning the accountability year, 2025.
2024's actual result.
That's correct. Yes, sir. This graph illustrates the graduation rate trend for the students with disabilities subgroup for the last 6 years. Although the students with disabilities graduation rate dropped from 70% last year to 65.2% this year, that rate is still up 23 percentage points compared to the 42.2%, which is the pre-pandemic rate back in 2020.
Size of population or what drives that?
Some of them associated back to the waivers issue.
Yes.
You know, during the pandemic, there was lots of waivers. Like, it was almost just a blanket waiver, so a lot of that coming back to
So whereas the 2024 70% rate, that group would have benefited from the waivers during their 9th and 10th grade years, whereas the 2025 group only benefited during their 9th grade year.
Next year, it wouldn't be shocking if it went down a little more because you wiped out a whole group. Everybody now is going to have measured scores.
Yes, sir.
Their assessments. Thank you.
Here's a frequency distribution graph of district graduation rates. The vast majority of districts in the state are graduating more than 80% of their students on time. Here's another frequency distribution that shows the district dropout rates. And the majority of districts have fewer than 10% of their students who drop out during high school. Again, the statewide average dropout rate this year is 8.5%. Here's a table of the top 10 districts as far as the highest graduation rates. And here's the top 10 table of the districts with the lowest dropout rates. You can see that the top 3 districts there had 0 dropouts during the most recent cohort window. That is a list of the districts with the lowest graduation rates and the highest dropout rates. Questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. Still on board here, I believe. Let's see. Dr. Vanderford and Allen Burrows.
We're back.
Still an
Information only this time.
Information only regarding our
I think the state superintendent's already made this presentation for you. Is that
I think he has.
pretty sure.
Probably so.
We'll all get together next time.
Yeah, and so Dr. Boone's going to
Good
join us.
information. Though. It's good to hear it twice.
He's going to get more in the weeds.
Very good. I like that.
Yeah, well, and then Dr. Boone is also joining us at the table because we'll want to end the presentation with some next steps across the agency, so.
Welcome, Dr. Boone.
All right, Alan, you want to kick us off and?
I'm just trying to get this to respond. Right. So many of you may be familiar with the nation's report card. The National Assessment of Educational Progress is the assessment that's given that feeds data into the nation's report card. It's the only assessment that measures U.S. students and what they can do in various subjects across the nation, states, and in some cases urban districts. The nation's report card measures several different subject areas, but reading and math are given every 2 years as their largest sample of data, so we focus on that, especially at the state level. What does NAEP measure? It measures overall student performance for key demographic groups, looks at the change in achievement over time, and provides data on the differences between the nation, states, and urban districts. For NAEP, they report jurisdiction-level results for all 50 states, the Department of Defense, District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and 27 urban districts. When we talk about ranking on the NAEP assessment for Mississippi, we're specifically looking at ranking across the 50 states. So just something neat to point out, NAEP is a sample assessment. It is not a consensus assessment like MAP is, the Mississippi assessment. So NAEP looks at a sample of schools and a sample of students within those schools. And so when we talk about results from NAEP, we do need to talk about significance because there's sampling error in the data. So when we talk about a score is significantly different from another, we're talking about technical significance in those statistics. This graph just shows the sample of students in schools across the nation that's given in mathematics and reading. In Mississippi, 187 schools in 95 districts participated. The administration was given in January to March of 2024. It's a digitally based assessment that's given on tablets. Students do not take both subject areas. They just take one of the subject areas, and they take a small portion of the total item pool in their subject area. And then accommodations are provided for some students with disabilities and English learners. And then when we talk about NAEP results, we're looking at two information items. That is the composite score, the scale score on the assessment, and the different achievement levels. And there's 4 achievement levels for NAEP. There's advanced, proficient, basic, and below basic. All right, we'll cover 4th grade and 8th grade math and reading. And we'll start with 4th grade math. This table shows in the yellow bar is Mississippi's average score on the NAEP assessment in 4th grade math. So you can see that we're right at the national average. And as you can see from those asterisks in the prior years, how we were they had significant difference from the current year. But then as you'll look back, we were significantly below the national average, and now we're at the national average. Again, 4th grade math, this just shows our different proficiency levels across the years. So you'll see that line going across. You can barely see it in the presentation on the screen, but there's a line showing the distinction between those students who are proficient or above, that's yellow and blue, or the red and purple, that's below proficient. And in 4th grade math, we were up 6% of students that were proficient or above from 2022, and up 12% from 2013. And this shows the proficiency rates at the national level. To point out here in 4th grade math, Mississippi was one of 13 states that had a significant improvement in 4th grade math from 2022. And 4th grade math was the only subject and grade to show significant improvement nationally from 2022. This shows the change in average scores for students in different demographic groups. And then here you can see how Mississippi compares to other states. So in this example, Mississippi, in that lighter middle blue, medium blue color, was one of 30 states that was not significantly different from the national average. So you'll see the national average on the assessment was 237. We're at 239. That's not significantly different. And this graphic shows where Mississippi ranks relative to other states in the you see NP on this graph represents national public. And this is the percentage of students that are at above NAEP basic. So Mississippi is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th in the ranking on this one. And this is the percentage of students that are at or above NAEP proficient. So Mississippi is fairly close to the national public rate. Moving on to 8th grade mathematics, you'll see this. We'll have the same charts now for the next 3 sections. So Mississippi, in this case, in 8th grade math, is moving closer to the national average. We're not significantly the same as the national average. We're slightly below it. But this is the closest we've been to it thus far. A couple of reasons. We haven't completely rebounded from pre-pandemic data, but also the national average has continued to drop in 8th grade math. And then this table shows 8th grade math proficiency rates for Mississippi. We're up 4% in the percentage of students that were proficient or above since the last assessment, which was 2022. And we're up 1% from 2013. And this is 8th grade math of the national public proficiency rates, which you can see have dropped. And this is the change in scores for different subgroups. You'll see that Mississippi has shown either no change or some improvement in these subgroups, while national is down. And then this shows Mississippi compared to other states. So in this case, we are significantly lower than the national average, but that represents 3 points on the national average scale score, 272. And then this is where we rank at or above basic on the proficiency rates, and then at or above NAEP proficient. Okay, fourth grade reading. This one is the exciting one. This is where we're showing the most improvement relative to the rest of the nation. We are significantly higher than the national average on the fourth grade reading assessment. We are up 1% of students scoring proficient or advanced from 2022, and we're up 11 percentage points on students scoring proficient or advanced from 2013. And then this is the national proficiency rates, which have dropped slightly. Again, Mississippi in our subgroups shows some improvement in most of our subgroups, while the national is down. And then this is the comparison of Mississippi with other states in the national average. We are significantly higher than the national average at 219. There's only 11 states that have that distinction. Here is our ranking for fourth grade reading at or above NAEP Basic, at or above NAEP Proficient, fourth grade reading. And then we have eighth grade reading results. Again, this is the closest point we've been to getting to the national average. And we are up 1% of students scoring proficient or advanced from 2022 and up 3% from 2013. And our student subgroups, again, for most of ours, we've shown improvement, while the national level has shown a decline. Our national average scale score is 253 relative to the 257, the national level. So we are significantly lower than the national average. Our ranking on eighth grade reading at or above NAEP Basic, at or above NAEP Proficient, eighth grade reading. Okay, so Dr. Boone will now speak to next steps.
Good morning. We are so excited to see these scores, and I just want to give credit where credit's due. All of our school and district administrators and our teachers deserve all the credit for the work that they're doing in their classrooms. And the fourth grade piece, as Dr. Evans already mentioned, started a long time ago when the Literacy-Based Promotion Act was passed, and hats off to our literacy department, because where we were then and how our coaching model, as he discussed earlier, has evolved, it continues to evolve because that team believes in getting better every day. So I'm going to start by sharing a few next steps with you. When Don Shula coached the Miami Dolphins, he gave the team 24 hours to wallow if there was a defeat and 24 hours to celebrate if there was a success. Our 24 hours are past, and so now it's back to work again. So we're going to continue our literacy training that we've been doing in order to sustain that fourth grade that you see. Dr. Evans mentioned we are increasing the number of literacy coaches through the EIRs. It's on the agenda today. There are 22 we want to add to our cadre. We're also looking at creating an adolescent literacy pilot for grades 4 through 8. We know that we do a really good job getting up through that third grade gate with the fourth grade NAEP, but we need to look at different strategies for what we do for adolescent readers. So we'll be piloting something in this upcoming fall, and then we plan to work with the legislature in 2026 to find some funding and support for a statewide adolescent literacy initiative. The next thing is, thank you. Dr. Evans mentioned we're going to redefine our math support. We saw what our literacy scores look like, and we know that we need to give some love to our math side. And he mentioned that we need to focus, instead of a K-12 focus, we need to focus in on certain grades. And we know that in math, it's like building a house. You have to have that foundation. So we're going to focus in on grades 2 through 6 with our math coaches and our support. We're also looking at our districts that adopt high-quality instructional materials, how we can support that. Sometimes they go out and hire consultants to help them with implementation, and there may not be a strong background from the consultants in that area. So we're going to create a process where we approve the vendors that provide that PD to districts so that we can ensure they're getting what they need. We're also looking at creating a micro-credentialing process for consultants, because if you have a literacy coach in your building and they've been through our training, we know the quality there. Not every school has a literacy coach. We don't have that many to give every school. So if you're going to hire someone else to help your teachers with that, we want it to be seamless, that it looks just like what we're doing. So we're looking at providing some training to those groups so that we can ensure every school gets what the schools get that we provide coaching to. So those are our next steps. Any questions?
One quick clarification. We're not going to require districts, we're not going to tell them who they have to use for the training. It's going to be like an approved vendor list that we vetted, so.
Correct.
I don't want you to think like we don't have the authority to require them to use anybody. But we can definitely create a vetted list based on knowing that they have the ability to provide the training. I didn't mean to interrupt you, I just wanted to say that.
I think you know me well enough to know that my question was going to be, is that going to be a mandatory selection by the districts? My impression immediately is maybe it should be, but okay, you just answered that too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just felt like.
No, that was, we were on the same track.
I did want to take a moment to recognize Farrah Nicholson. Would you stand up? This is our NAEP state NAEP coordinator. She does all the work around the NAEP assessment. Just wanted to introduce her.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you for that,
Good
because
job.
I've noticed as I'm looking at you, she is back behind you and she is heavily involved in your presentation. I wondered what, okay, I got it.
Now you know why.
Any questions for this team? All right, so our next is an action item, and you guys are still up. This has been fun today.
Item number 4, I'm going to ask Mr. Kramer to join me at the table. We'll present the item on behalf of Dr. Evans. We presented this item to the Commission on School Accreditation back a couple of weeks ago, and we're asking for approval to suspend the personnel edit review process for the current school year and hold schools and districts harmless for any flags that they may have as we transition from the legacy MSIS to MSIS 2.0. So I just want to give an overview. I'm not going to cross my legs, so I asked Mr. Kramer to join me about the impact of the transition and why we may be here, but I want to ensure that I explain that this is an annual process that we go through in the Office of Accreditation. We refer to it as somewhat of a desk audit that we conduct in the spring of each year based on the data that the districts have entered into the system. And it's of a number of process standards. And during this transition from legacy MSIS to MSIS 2.0, the agency-wide staff have reviewed policies and procedures, work area code reports, and course code reports, and items that impact what the districts need in order to input their data into the system. And so through that process, we found that items that we thought were being checked in legacy MSIS may not have been checked and that could have occurred in programming years ago, and we were just not aware of that. And then we found that some of the revisions that we intended to make to the process in the work area codes and the course code manuals may not have been transferred yet to the new MSIS 2.0. So for that, we had a number of districts that were receiving flags, and we just went to Dr. Evans, Dr. Malone, and me and said, look, with this transition and with all of the policies and procedures and documents and manuals that we've reviewed, we think we need to take a step back and hold the districts harmless while we work across the agency. And this has impacted all of the program offices. We could give you some examples if you needed of what we first were seeing, but we're just taking a very close look, and we want to ensure that the systems are flagging what we need them to flag on the personnel edits, and we did not want the districts to have any erroneous flags. And so throughout this process, we're going to continue. Dr. Evans has granted permission for us to ask the commission and the board for this hold harmless piece that will allow all the directors across the agency to look within our program offices to ensure that we are getting the outcomes from all of the manuals, course code manuals, work area codes that we need, and that we continue to review and revise. We may eliminate some of the requirements as we take a closer look at this. We may establish some new requirements, but if that occurs, we assure you that districts will be notified and provided ample time to implement that prior to us moving forward. So I had a superintendent reach out the other day and said, we're getting ready to issue contracts, and I'm seeing a number of flags. Should I not issue contracts? And I said, oh, no, do not hold up on issuing contracts to your staff while we work through this. But we just want to give districts some relief. And then one thing I'll say before because Mr. Kramer was able to give the commission and explain it better than I am because I'm a non-technical person, but the districts, this is not an opportunity like we had in COVID where all of the rules are suspended and waived. We expect and have shared with districts that we want the districts to remain compliant with the rules that they know that are in place, and this would not exempt a district if we were on site in an audit. I mean, it's just not a waiver. It's just a hold harmless from this process to where we would issue any letters of noncompliance to a district for a flag. So is there any questions on my end before I turn it over to Mr. Kramer?
What happens if a district gets a letter of noncompliance normally?
Well, they have a period of time in which to correct that. So if they're hiring, and I'm glad you asked that question because I forgot to make a point. If there are, if they have a vacancy, just say there's a district that may not have a high school math teacher that's certified for Algebra 1, then they would receive a notice, and prior to the next school year, they would have to have a certified Algebra 1 teacher in place, or it would result in a downgrade or an impact on their accreditation status. So, but in this, we have districts that are currently have submitted human capital plans because they have staff that they know and have been aware of the fact that they are not properly licensed and endorsed. So this is not a reset for those districts like happened in COVID. So districts that have issues of noncompliance that they are aware of, they will still be and have the expectation to implement their plan that they have in place to ensure that all staff are properly licensed and endorsed. So it's not a forgiveness on that. Mr. Kramer, do you remember what you said to the commission?
Sure. I just have a couple quick points, or 3 quick points. So for background, so the old MSIS, or legacy MSIS, the system that was built and went operational in 2000, was very poorly documented and did a poor job in terms of helping us understand as an agency, because the people who had done the original work were gone and the documentation was not around for us to understand it, to really understand the implications of, or the impact of the various accreditation rules. The second thing about the legacy system was that the districts input the data on their teachers in manually. They typed in. So if I've got a large district like DeSoto would manually type in their teacher information into the old MSIS. And they would clear these checks that were not necessarily operating exactly the way they needed to be. The decision was made years ago to let's just replace MSIS and we'll deal with this question about these accreditation rules in the new system as we build it out. So going to MSIS 2.0, the new MSIS, the system then has two things. One, working with accreditation and other program offices, get the rules that are in code or in statute to get them into the new system. And secondly is MSIS 2.0 reads data out of the personnel systems that the districts have locally. So now I've got a much more immediate read on what's going on, and I've also got a clear picture of what the rules are. Well, that's basically just running square into a pretty hard, pretty hard object, right, in terms of the impact of this on the districts. And so part of what we need to do then going forward, and this is the request as Dr. Vanderford described, coming to the commission and now coming here today, is to give us an opportunity to revisit and look at exactly what the impact of these rules are, to figure out exactly what those rules need to be, to give fair notice to the districts to understand that these rules that were quite suddenly thrust upon them this school year, to give them time to adapt, but not to do it in a way that breaks anything for them operationally or breaks anything in terms of our accreditation obligations or breaks the system. So we're trying to figure out how to thread the needle for next school year to make sure that everything is clear to everybody as to what is required.
So, to make sure I understand that, what's coded is accurate. It
Yes.
is reading the personnel files and it are the rules.
Right.
So what's coming into it, either they've been non-compliant for a matter of time because they weren't compliant before, or the personnel system's not accurate. One of those two things.
Well, I would say that there's there's a lot of murkiness in here, and I don't know if Dr. Vanderford wants to weigh in on this. I'm sensing that she does, but I would just say one quick thing is, what you do in terms of like your schedules and your teachers and all the rest, and how you code it into your system would then have to be extracted and then massaged into the old system. We're reading directly as they recorded the data in their system. So for instance, I have a PE section that is actually a baseball team practicing with a baseball coach. Well, the coach is the coach, but the coach is not necessarily, from a certification perspective, certified to teach PE. But the block was being used for the baseball team. So in the past, they would assign that section to a certified PE teacher, even if that teacher were not certified in that core. I mean, not actually the baseball coach, excuse me. And so it's like, okay, how do we deal with that? What does it actually mean to have the baseball coach teaching that block for the baseball team relative to certification or an accreditation edit check? So yes, the old system was not accurately giving a good picture to us or to the district as to what the violations were. But we've just moved along in that space and it's evolved to whatever that room has allowed them to implement for whatever meets their operational needs. But this is just, but the new rules are now correct.
Wendy.
I'm not sure if she's trying to ask a question or, but I was going to say that's, so we have a harsh now kind of immediate reading against the data that is in their local personnel system and in their class scheduling that has raised these issues, but there's been no transition from one world to the other. It's just been rather abrupt. I don't think it's...
That data, so, I mean, theoretically, prior system, you can manipulate that data. You're keying what you want the answer to be. Today, it is reading what is fact with direct read. There's no error to misenter data or need to manipulate that data either.
I think that's a fair read on it. I mean, there's probably a lot of nuance layered into that, but I think that's a pretty good overview of what you're describing. I would agree is what we're finding.
Well, and a simple example that I was going to give when I was referencing things that we thought may have been being flagged in legacy MSIS that was not, and Dr. Boykin, I'm going to use special education as an example, but the work area codes and the course codes tell us what an individual needs to be properly licensed and endorsed for that position or to teach that class. And if we use the example, correct me if I do it right, like of a district-level special education director, the requirements have always been that that individual hold an administrative endorsement, and there's a couple of options on the endorsement side, and a special education endorsement, that they require both. And in this transition, we recognize that the previous or legacy system may have read that as an either-or rather than a both. I mean, and this is a rule that districts were aware of, and the course code and work area code manuals are correct. It's just that we didn't know that they weren't getting the flags. And then when we started like releasing the personnel edits, then Dr. Boykin and accreditation, Dr. Malone, started getting all these questions about why is this individual flagging? They've never flagged before. So then we just started having a number of those issues. I mean, that was just the first example that came to mind. And so after we got several of those, we felt it was best to have a conversation with Dr. Evans and let's consider this whole harmless so that we could verify everything, to Mr. Creeman's point.
So the reality is we're going to be no worse off than we are today. We're just going to be aware of it. Is that fair?
I think, right, we're going from some obscurity to some clarity, then to resolution. I think is sort of this three-step journey that we're in.
Depends on how you define it.
Yeah.
In a school district, though, they're not going to agree with no worse off.
But I will tell you this. I do think, so I'm trying to find a positive. But again, let me say this again. All fairness, there was no like rule book for previous MSIS. So like Mr. Kramer, he didn't know that this wasn't doing it. Dr. Vanderford didn't know this wasn't doing it. There was no rule book, right? To understand how it worked. But something that I want to drive home, I think a positive of this is it is requiring, it's allowing us the opportunity to revisit some of these and some of these requirements that maybe don't make sense. You know, sometimes necessity is a mother of invention, if you will. It's allowing us to create a list of opportunities to maybe massage things that don't make sense from our accreditation standpoint. So
Our program office. Like,
thank you, our program office or whatever might be the case. So I see it as a.
And again, I wasn't being critical. I mean, we do this in my world too. We put a system in place because we needed better accountability or needed a better process. It sounds like we built a better mousetrap. Now there's a transition time to make sure we can line up with it.
But for 20 plus years, we've been thinking we were doing it correctly. You know what I mean? So.
And the districts did not like receiving the flags that they were receiving with the new.
But the bottom line is you've recognized an issue and you're fixing it.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's not an overnight fix either, but you've been operating the way for 20 years.
This may have been addressed and I missed it. The hold harmless, while there is no penalty for a district for having the wrong licensure in a specific slot, last for how long? What's the time frame?
Through this current school year.
Okay,
At this
and then
time.
it's
So
over.
we only are asking approval for from the commission and the board. I mean, we've had superintendents ask, are we gonna able to be just right on track with this next year? We can't answer that question now because the personnel process has always been lagged a year behind from the time that we established, and that was because of the way that the old system operated. And now that the new system is gonna operate in real time, we'll eventually be able to see any errors or issues of noncompliance in real time, and we'll catch up with that lag. So what next year will look like, it's kind of hard to answer that right now, but we can ensure districts that during this process, as we maybe eliminate, to Dr. Evans' point about rules that may not make sense, or establish any new rules that are necessary, we will build into our timeline for districts a period for implementation, not to just like pull the rug out from under them immediately. And the whole harmless piece is about this time of the year, maybe a little earlier, the Office of Accreditation would be sending notices to every district, and generally it's about 100 out of or more of districts sometimes that have issues of compliance, and it's a written letter to each district that has an issue that says, you know, you have 10 teachers in your district that are not properly licensed and endorsed, and here are your 10 districts. And then the superintendent would say, respond to us and say, yes, we couldn't find a high school math teacher. We've now hired a high school math teacher, so I've resolved that issue of noncompliance. And it's a lengthy process that takes months for us to resolve all these issues within the district. And it was just like really a moot point and kind of a waste of time and for both the district and the agency to go back and forth with that if we weren't sure that all the rules were in place as they should be.
Which, Brew, to your point, I do not want people to think that that there's not a chance that we might not have to come back and say A rule, B, you know,
Right.
specific rules, but we have to ask for some leniency next year. I don't want people walking out to go to this app, but I don't want people walking out here thinking that, and then next year someone say, well, I thought you told me, you know.
And we just have a precedence, you know, I mean, even with COVID, those of you that were on the board will have to remember how many times we had to come back to the board and revise the policies that were being waived or the statutes that were being waived, because it's an ongoing process. But we do not like to ask the board for any type of hold harmless or waivers of any standards for just a period of 1 year at a time until we determine what's appropriate.
Does it have any negative effect on accreditation internally or externally? Anybody else that's looking at our schools?
I mean, it would if you knew there was an issue and you didn't clear it up after the grace period in which you were given, yes, sir. I mean, you would get a downgrade like Dr. Bannister said.
You're placed on probation for a year, and then you're downgraded the year after. Isn't that the way that works?
And there are some districts that are in that position now because over time, in the last, I mean, we have districts that probably have had 3 years of consecutive violations on record, and they have a corrective action plan, and they're working through that corrective action plan. And we're not giving those districts relief with this hold harmless process. They are still being required to implement those corrective action plans and seek to hire individuals that are properly licensed and endorsed for all of those positions that are on record.
Any of these changes that we find that are just weird, is there an APA process on any of that, or is this all in-house work?
Now, there may be some rules. Let me give you an example of one that we did recently where a district test coordinator was required to have an administrator license as well, and then the commission and the board removed that restriction and said instead of a shall have an administrator, they may. And so a rule change such as that did go through the APA process, so it's possible that some changes may, but, I mean,
So to answer Mr. Pruitt's question, no, there may be some things that during the course of next year, we will have to change, that we will not be able to hold these school districts accountable for it, and then that rule change. Does that make sense, Mike?
And my last question, though, is this, how widespread? Are we substantially compliant, I mean, substantially inside the box, or is it all
I
over?
would say some of these situations are widespread, but, and it's because of historically, we thought we were doing it, it was being pulled, and it wasn't. So I really don't want to go count. Because, not that I don't want to, but I'm afraid it would be a large.
What I hear is we're gonna have a better process going forward,
Yes.
this is a period of transition.
I promise you.
And I will also say, I don't think it was normally because you had people trying to push buttons to make it fit either. I think you had in that manual some different wording and how it was worded. Now, I don't know about baseball coaches not being MPE certified, but there's other issues there that if you're reading that manual, you can read it as and or as or both, and I think there was just a lot of confusion in the old legacy system. We have some issues in our own district that we had no clue we would have until we made this shift. And she's not sitting down there changing anything. You know, we just thought the way the rules were written was the way the rules were written, so. Right.
Or how the information's captured in the scheduling system,
Exactly.
right? Just
And
again,
so
adjustments
anyway,
at the district level.
I think it's
adjustments.
very widespread, to answer your question, based on the peers that I'm talking to. And it is, the ones that I'm hearing about are things that I think at the end of the day may not make sense and will probably be changed anyway to meet the needs, especially in our environment of finding teachers to teach special needs children. So I think that.
As the commission, I
This work is already
Yes,
gone, so
yes,
all
sir.
we're doing is,
The
yes.
11th? The 11th?
It's already
It was
been to them.
approved by the commission on the 11th.
Of this month?
Any other
Yes,
questions for this,
previously.
on this topic?
I move to approve as presented.
All right, Mr. Mayhew on the move. Motion, second?
Second.
Mayo, I keep saying Mayhew, I apologize. I grew up with a Mayhew boy, and I just, Mayo, and then Billie Jean on the second. Any other questions? Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're good there. Dr. Gavin, is that you? Come on up.
Bring his piece.
Motion to not accept the resignation. No,
Good morning. From the Office of Chief of Operations, we have one contract that we're bringing to the board for approval. It's a modification with the National Student Clearinghouse. It is to extend the terms of the contract and also to add the additional funds to support that extension.
Any questions about National Student Clearinghouse? On the Office of Chief Operations Officer, do I have a motion to approve item 5.4? Mayo?
Second.
Miller? Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have a grant to take action on.
Okay, action item 6A, you've heard about this already, but this is the ERR grants. We do have 22 new grants, but we're also asking approval for 58 in total, and this will bring all of the ERR grants under the same terms and bring those cohorts under the same terms, and also add the opportunity to increase their pay up to 5%.
Questions for Dr. Gavin? Motion to approve. Jean on the motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Pruitt? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through M?
So moved.
Miller on the motion. Second, Mr. Mayo. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Do we need to go into executive session?
I move that the board consider making a closed determination, excuse me, of the need to go into executive session.
Motion on the floor, Billie Jean. It's a second, I'm sorry. Matt is the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we'll need to pause the live stream and move into executive session.
The board has gone into executive session for discussion of discrete personnel matters in accordance with Mississippi Code annotated Section 25417, 4A and K, and discussion and strategy sessions or negotiations with respect to prospective litigation, ongoing litigation, or issuance of an appealable order in accordance with Mississippi Code annotated Section 25417, 4B.
Welcome back, everybody. Any meetings that need to be reported on? Kate Crosby and I need permission to attend the MSBA meeting on the 25th, 26th, and 24, 25, and 26th of next week.
So moved.
Motion, Mayo. Can I get a second? And all in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, so y'all can go be on the panel at the MSBA. I'll be with you.
Awesome.
Any other meetings we need to attend? Yes.
Yeah. I request approval to attend the Consortium of State School Boards Association Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, that is being held March 21st through the 23rd. As you may know, I am serving on the National Student Board Member Association Executive Council, serving as the Southeast Vice President. NSBMA has been selected as a presenter for the conference, and the program director has requested that I speak.
Move to allow Kate to represent us in Atlanta.
So excited about
Mayo,
that.
second. Matt Miller, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Go Kate, go. Anything else? Any other approvals?
One last thing, the RFP for the strategic plan, we did the evaluation. Scores were sent to procurement. They're working through their piece, and they'll be awarding the RFP to, we had like 18 apply. So it'll be coming up. Now, I don't know who won because it was like a blind deal.
How soon do you anticipate that?
I'll follow up, Dr.
Best
Aaron,
guess.
but it was a month before we get it, actually less than a month before it's waiting, because they have to go through there and it goes through the public procurement board. It's all these hoops that you have to go through to get it awarded, so I'm sorry I meant to say that earlier.
Any other business other than the next meeting? The March board meeting will be held on March the 20th, 2025 in Jackson, Mississippi at the Central High School building, located in the boardroom, located on the 4th floor. The meeting will begin at 10 o'clock. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Gene. Second, Miller. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
One nay, two unknown. That would be Pruitt. You're welcome to stay. Mr. Pruitt, you're welcome to stay up here the rest of the week if you'd like to.
It's too cold to walk outside.
Take care, Wendy. Take care, Bill.
Did you get it? Yes, sir. Get in?